Good morning. Is it working? No. Good morning. The button's pressed. It says it's got a. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Good morning. Eugene McGee. I'm the chairman of the deacons this year, and I just kind of want to update the church on what the deacons have been working on this year and going forward with the new pastor search. And I'm going to just read straight from this piece of paper because I don't want to miss anything and I don't want to mess it up. But the deacons began this year with at least 3 goals in mind. Preserve the unity of the Spirit within the church, find more space for the church to grow, and find a senior pastor. Early on, your deacon body worked with Tom Suter and Dr. McLaurin to address the space issues and work on a plan to continue the search for a senior pastor. The November deacons meeting last year after the vote, it was decided to take some time off before beginning the process of another pastor search. On February 23rd, Dr. McLaurin addressed the church and told us that I would soon be giving the church a timeline on the pastor search. And soon after this announcement, I began the process of gathering names and alternate members of the former pastor search committee and others that had received a high number of votes. And about the same time I began this process, a tornado ripped through our city. I, along with a lot of you, worked long hours trying to help put the city back together. Then 2 weeks later, COVID forced the church to close its doors to corporate worship. As a result, our worship went online only, and Jeff began preaching to the entire church. Jeff was no longer the associate pastor of the gathering service. He was the associate pastor of Immanuel Baptist Church. During our time away from corporate worship, your deacons continued to meet. We discussed the difficulty of moving forward with the pastor search in the environment that was created by the virus. The deacon body decided it would be appropriate to wait until the congregation was able to come back together to face. Also during this time, your deacon body was working with Jeff and the church staff on ways to create more space. Our Sunday school classes were at capacity and the gathering service was full. A plan was formulated by the staff and affirmed by the deacon body. This plan was to move the gathering service to the sanctuary and add another hour of Sunday school to double the space. While this plan had been discussed by various committees for months prior to the virus, it was clear that God was preparing our church for what was happening in the world. Even with the start of the new schedule and excitement that came with it, the fact remained that at some point we're going to have to address the senior pastor vacancy. This is something that I personally sought guidance for. I've consulted many of you in the congregation, people that I love and respect. And initially my thoughts were pretty simple. Just put together another pastor search committee and let them find the man to lead our church. As time went by, I prayed for the Holy Spirit to guide my thoughts. Could not help but think about men and women that served on the pastor search committee that brought Jeff as a candidate. It was clear that they were led by the Spirit to choose Jeff. And I don't know how you can just form a new team without disrespecting the Spirit-led conclusion a woman like Margaret Head or a guy like Carl Jones came to, that Jeff Pratt is the man that was sent to lead our church. I also don't want to respect the members of the congregation that felt led to vote against affirming their recommendation. I explained all this to the deacons on our September 13th meeting, and I asked them to pray for 31 days and come back and discuss on how to go forward from here. We met on November 1st and had a lengthy discussion about options going forward. The deacon body voted unanimously to speak to the pastor search committee that recommended Jeff as a senior pastor and asked them if they still stood by their recommendation. Mark Clemens contacted each member of the pastor search committee and they reaffirmed their conclusion. Now, I believe that God has orchestrated everything that has happened here. There's no way that anyone could have foreseen or planned for any of this to happen. It's a testament to things will happen in God's time. And I'm thankful that through all of this, our church has remained unified in spirit and faithful to his word. And I'm thankful that Jeff has remained as a steady influence. I believe that Jeff, through his selfless actions, has affirmed that he is the man that God has sent to us. As chairman of the deacons, I am standing here before you and requesting, in light of the circumstances where Jeff has shown the ability to lead our church through unprecedented times, a vote affirming Jeff Pratt as a senior pastor of Immanuel Baptist Church. And this vote will be held on November 22nd, 2020 during the worship hours. I'm going to let James explain the logistics of that vote.
As Eugene said, we're going to have the vote for Jeff Pratt to become senior pastor of Immanuel Baptist Church on November 22nd at all 3 services. We're going to have ballots in the pews and boxes at the doors.